We believe in making technology even thinner and less intrusive than ever before, which is why today I'm very excited to announce Apple's thinnest product ever, even thinner than the M4 OLED iPad Pro. This is the next generation of iPhone, the iPhone 17 Slim. Ow! It cut my hand! Oh, it's too sharp. It's far too sharp. Almost as sharp as the Super Retina XDR display that you will find inside this marvelous machine. Good morning! I need a bandage. So yeah, I'll admit we're in kind of a dry tech news season. Not gonna try to pretend that there's anything very mind-blowing going on. AI is a scam, the country's in the toilet, and there's very little we can do about it. But despite all of that, we keep getting the same leakers all talking about the same thing, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It's this iPhone 17 Slim. Apparently the iPhone 16 is so mind-blowing that no one wants to talk about it anymore. So we're talking about next year's iPhone, but it's a little bit more interesting than usual, in my opinion. But still, none of the reports made sense to me. We're hearing from Quo, we're hearing from The Information and Jeff Poo. All these different leakers and analysts are saying that Apple is going to drop the 17 Plus, okay? So they're just not seeing great sales when it comes to the larger non-Pro. So we're still getting a 16 Plus this year, but next year it's supposed to just be regular iPhone 17, and then 17 Pro, 17 Pro Max, but now everybody's saying that there's supposed to be a new iPhone that goes above the Pro Max, but it doesn't really sound quite like an Ultra. You know, I was kind of hoping if we had an iPhone Ultra, it would just be big battery, super thick, crazy good camera, and huge display, kind of iPad mini on steroids. But all these are saying that that super high-end iPhone that's more expensive than a Pro Max is going to only have 2 cameras, and it's going to be super thin, thinner than any other iPhone before, and still have aluminum chassis instead of titanium, and have the latest and greatest, you know, A19 chip or whatever. But again, doesn't really make any sense to me that Apple would make an iPhone with a worse camera and probably worse battery life and less quality materials at a higher price than the Pro Max. It's not bigger than the Pro Max, it's a smaller overall display. So what the heck is this thing? And then I discovered Max Tech recently kind of broke it down. He explained in his video that he believes that this is actually secretly the next big thing for the iPhone. It's a folding phone. It's Apple copying essentially the Galaxy Z Flip and making an iPhone that appears normal when unfolded, but you can fold it in half and slide it in your pocket to take up less space. And of course, when you're folding something in half, the thickness of it is a lot more sensitive. And when I first heard his outlandish theory that made absolutely no sense, I immediately thought to myself, oh my god, Max Tech, you are so right. This actually makes so much more sense. You followed me on Twitter, because that's what it's called. You'd know that for a while now I've been saying foldables are kind of gimmicky, they're kind of stupid, but I honestly, genuinely think Apple should do one. Not because I want one, but simply because Apple is running out of things to add. We already got our action buttons. This year we're getting capture buttons. Once we get ProMotion displays on the budget iPhones next year, it's going to be like, how the heck do we get people excited or eager to talk about new iPhones again? It's just going to be the same thing over and over again. Slightly thinner bezel, slightly brighter display, slightly better camera. We've got Type-C now, so less and less is there any differentiating features between Android and iOS. You know, the operating systems are blurring together more and more. To create an iPhone that stands out in some way, that isn't just a slight iteration on the previous generation iPhone, I think just for the sake of it being new and flashy and purely for marketing reasons. I'm not saying there's really anything functionally that you gain by making an iPhone flip model. It's purely just to get people talking, and it's purely just to follow that original Apple mindset of kind of think different by doing something that the rest of the industry has already done. Yes, it wouldn't be the first time Apple saw something that is somewhat popular in the Android space and decided to bring it to the iPhone lineup. Again, I'm not saying I would buy it. It doesn't sound that interesting to me or that practical, but neither does an M4 chip in an iPad Pro. The use case for someone who needs a $3,000 iPad setup is relatively niche, in my opinion, but Apple's still doing it just because they can. It doesn't matter that 80 to 90% of iPad sales are for the $300 to $400 models, and most people are just buying them as YouTube babysitters for their kids. No, that doesn't stop Apple from saying, let's see what happens if we did a tandem OLED panel and put a crazy M4 chip in there, tried to make everybody buy a $350 keyboard case and a brand new Apple Pencil Pro. How many people are actually going to be buying those things? Or how many people want to buy a $550 pair of AirPods Max with a lightning port that don't even support lossless playback? Yeah, it's kind of niche, but Apple has a lot of brand power, so lots of people ended up buying it. So similarly, yes, the folding phones are gimmicky. No, they're not very practical, but when you're running out of new and exciting features to get people talking about the iPhone, you kind of have to get gimmicky. You have to kind of follow the niches and follow the present day trends, like AI. Apple's already been doing AI stuff for years, but once they realized that OpenAI got all this investment from all of their large language models kind of going viral, that's what made Apple decide, okay, let's stop calling it machine learning and neural net training. Let's just straight up call it AI with Apple intelligence, because that's the bandwagon. And as big as Apple is and as pioneering as they used to be, they're kind of back in the days of just following with what everybody else is doing. And you know what? Because they have a hard time coming up with innovative new ideas. Same thing with Apple Vision Pro. It's like, yeah, this kind of hardware existed before, but now Apple's doing it in their way. And I think that's something that Tim Cook has kind of figured out how to apply the Apple logic and the Apple brand power to an existing market. You know how there were Bluetooth headphones and wireless headphones before AirPods, but Apple found a way to make it uniquely them. They found a way to make it better, and of course, because Apple's got a lot of brand power, lots of people were willing to buy them. Now AirPods are like the most popular headphone in the world. So similarly, my prediction is that yes, they are working on how to make an iPhone as thin as they possibly can, because they want to fold it in half so that there could be another gimmicky feature like an iFlip or whatever, and you can prop it up for easier FaceTime calls. Maybe it has center stage. It takes up a little bit less space in your pocket, and then they make the argument that, well, yes, well, we got rid of the mini iPhone. Now we've come up with an iPhone that still has a big screen, but takes up very little space in your pocket because it's so thin and so lightweight. But because it folds, it'll probably compromise, of course, on the battery life and the camera quality, or maybe the thermals will be somewhat limited because there's not as big a heat sink, that kind of thing. But again, Apple's grasping at straws here, so there's definitely enough time before the release of the iPhone 17 series for Apple to change their mind and go, you know what, never mind, let's just have a boring old iPhone release where it's just a bunch of rectangles again with slightly better chips and slightly better cameras. But genuinely, listening to Max Tech's video convinced me. I think he's right, and I think that Apple is going to make a foldable, and yes, they are very much last to this market, similar to how they were with Apple Vision Pro and AirPods, but usually Apple gets it right. So similarly, I think Apple will optimize iOS to be foldable friendly more so than any other operating system on present day folding phones, and Apple usually gets people comfortable with spending big money on things like phones because the iPhone is so popular as is. So simply for the fact that it'll be the first folding phone that runs iOS, it'll probably be the best-selling foldable in the world within its first year. That's just the way it's gone with previous generation Apple products. They were definitely not the first to make a smartwatch, but Apple Watch is definitely now like the most popular watch in the world. I just hope that eventually they copy the Z Fold, because I would rather have a bigger screen when opened up. I don't really see the point in the flips other than, again, marketing power, and it gets people talking. Whether you like it or hate it, there's something more to talk about, which is, I think, what Apple's most worried about, getting to the point where the new iPhones have so little changes, so little new features that no one's talking about them. That's not good for the marketing, so that's why they're probably going to do a foldable, follow the rest of the industry, but do it in their own unique Apple way, and that's how they're going to justify the high price and get a bunch of people on board with it and probably outsell all other foldables. But what do you guys think? Is Apple seriously just considering making an ultra-thin iPhone? Do you think all these leakers are wrong and they're all just making stuff up for the sake of clicks? That's possible too. Feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you all in the next one.